Hi, we are back, and we're going to be reacting to some conspiracies that might be true. And I think most conspiracies are true. All conspiracies are true at this point because the government be lying and shit. You know what I'm saying? They be lying. At this point, they are investigated in UAPs. Oh, they just diverted, never wanted to call them UFO. And now UAPs, unknown aerial phenomena. That's so stupid. They think like people will just go and ignore that. But my guy, let's check out some conspiracies that are true. No, might be true. Let's go. Are true.
Number 10. Roswell Cover-Up. In the summer of 1947, an object crashed down to Earth in Roswell, New Mexico.
This one was
Theories
the
that it was an
hardest
alien
cover up.
spacecraft have pervaded pop culture for over a half a century since.
Everybody thinks that Roswell was the first sighting of a UFO in the United States, and that's bull roar.
The U.S. Air
On
Force
record,
claimed
maybe.
that the object was merely a weather balloon, only added fuel to the fire. And the conspiracy theorists were right. It was no weather balloon, and there was a cover-up. But it wasn't an alien ship either, probably. The object was a high-altitude balloon launched as part of Project Mogul. These balloons were intended to detect sound waves from Soviet atomic bomb tests. During the Cold War, the U.S. military couldn't exactly be honest about that in the papers. Now, whether you think that's another cover story, well...
Yeah, it's a cover story for real. Because a person came out, apparently, that's what I think. A person came out and said there was a UFO crash, it crash landed these ends, and there were little green people or something like that. And when they went there, they were like government agents and all that stuff, and they ended up covering up as a weather balloon. So now everything flying in the sky, which we don't know about, is a weather balloon, a UAP.
Not be another damn Russian spy job.
Number 9. Big Tobacco's Big Lie.
There's extensive use of this technology, which is called ammonia chemistry, that allows for nicotine to be more rapidly absorbed in the lungs and therefore affect the brain and central nervous system.
Smoking causes lung cancer
Yeah,
and a lot
this
of
one
other
is
adverse
true.
health effects.
Because most addicts
Scientists
these days,
demonstrated this
yo,
definitively in the
yo,
1950s.
you be vetting and all
However,
that
public
stuff.
opinion wavered for decades, with
The
sources
nicotine
springing up
got
to
you.
generate
No
controversy
cap.
and debate. Some suspected that the tobacco industry was suppressing and distorting the facts through a coordinated campaign, and it eventually came out that they were.
It was
Together, the
business
world's
for them.
largest tobacco companies initiated Operation Berkshire to generate fake controversy and debate. Big Tobacco knew that smoking caused cancer and that nicotine was addictive. They decided not to make cigarettes less harmful because addiction made them a lot of money.
Now, the work we did here is confidential, not for public scrutiny, any more than our one's family matters.
Okay, now imagine how these big companies be playing us, man. Like for real, how they be playing us. Like they cover up things and say no, it's good for you. It's like fast food industry. The fast food industry is one of those places, places, group of people where they're manipulating the things the public actually gets to know about, and it's creepy. It's scary because a lot of people trust in these things, in these companies, and you're being lied to. Hmm. Think about it.
In my family now, too.
Just goes to show, where there's smoke, there's often fire.
See how camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
Oh yeah.
Number
They
8.
stopped
The White
cigarettes.
Sox through the World Series.
At
The
this.
Chicago White Sox are on record for having one of the longest droughts between winning World Series at 87 years. However, they weren't always known for their bad luck. Back in the late 1910s, the Sox won in 1917, and they even had a wonder like Shoeless Joe Jackson on the team.
I don't know
Yet,
anything
rumors
about
during the
baseball, like for real.
1919 series held that the games were fixed. The White Sox lost the series.
We
but the
play
rumors
soccer
persisted
then.
into the next year. Eventually, a grand jury found evidence that 8 players, including Jackson, though his role is disputed, were involved in a conspiracy to receive money in exchange for throwing the series.
I think the Black Sox players saw a high reward for what they were doing. They could make
as much as their yearly salary in 1 week
Ooh.
for fixing the World
I'm
Series.
taking
While a
that thing.
trial found them
I'm
not
taking
guilty,
it.
they
If
were
you're making
nevertheless
more money
banned from the
than
league
your
permanently.
yearly pay in 1
Number
week,
7.
you just have to play a
Nefarious
game.
agents infiltrated
You're
the
doing it,
government.
my guy.
The Church of Scientology is infamously touchy about any criticism of their organization.
This is Scientology.
I didn't mean anything by it. I don't even know L. Ron Hubbard.
Their influence over celebrities is well known, but theories about their influence over the government are also out there. And here's the thing. Scientologists really did infiltrate the government. In the
This reminds me of
1970s,
South
at
Park.
least 5,000 members of the organization conducted espionage on government agencies and private organizations. And this wasn't a fringe element either. The founder's wife, Mary Sue Hubbard, pleaded guilty and went to prison. It was one of the largest scale infiltrations of the U.S.
She
government
just
in
took
history.
the fall for the group.
All of this was done
Yeah,
with the aim of
I think it's
destroying
a plot
evidence
as
that
well.
painted Scientology in an unfavorable light. It arguably had quite the opposite effect.
The Illuminati.
Those Scientologists, they can be pretty sensitive.
Number 6. The FBI spied on political activists.
They do it all the time. Like, this
Those
is not
involved
something
in
you
political
can
protests
even
and other activist causes are often paranoid that they're being watched.
push aside.
And they should be, because it's happened before and it can happen again.
It
Tapes
always
from
happens.
hotel rooms, FBI
History
reports,
repeats
those
itself,
are
and
pieces
it's
of
happening.
information that we shouldn't have.
From the late 50s to the early 70s, the FBI engaged in illegal surveillance, infiltration, and disruption of protest movements and other organizations deemed subversive.
He realized how sick this country was. We were trying to reveal the truth about segregation.
These ranged from independence movements to civil rights movements to
Yeah.
feminist organizations. They even had John Lennon, the former Beatles frontman, under watch. While this program, named COINTELPRO, was abolished in 1971, others may have taken its place.
This represents the darkest part of the Bureau's history.
Number 5. The first female U.S. president. While the United States has yet to elect a woman to the office of president, by electoral college anyway, some theorize that a woman has assumed the duties of the office already.
When?
In 1919, President Woodrow Wilson suffered a debilitating stroke. This left him bedridden and partially paralyzed with some impaired judgment.
If I don't help him be president, what a kind of wife am I?
Hold it. That's dumb though. She wasn't elected president. I can say maybe she was helping govern, but not president. So she wasn't president at all. It's more like a vice president takes over. They're not president. They are the vice president, which means they are not president. Anyway, let's continue.
Over a year, Wilson's wife Edith aided him in governing the country
Yeah.
to the point where she was basically performing his job in
Hell
all
no.
but name. The degree of her involvement was kept a close secret, and Wilson herself denied that she made executive decisions until her death.
So he's
I think
like
that's true.
sitting there and they like move his arm and then they just release that to the press, and that's how dumb people were back then.
Number 4. The government is spying on you. The common refrain for cranks and conspiracy nuts for decades has been that the government is
If you're
watching
doing
our every
something
move.
shady,
And
you're
it's
bound
not
to
completely wrong.
spy on
With the
you.
rise of smartphones and the internet, the government has unprecedented access to information on its citizens.
Yeah.
Following us.
In the wake of 9/11, the Bush administration initiated far-reaching mass surveillance programs, both foreign and domestic. The NSA's activities in the years since have included sucking up and storing online history, emails, metadata, text messages, you name it. Edward Snowden revealed a lot of this info with his leaks, including how other governments were also implicated.
Even if you send it to somebody within the United States,
The government is a
your
big
wholly
organization,
domestic communication
so they try
between
to
you
have
and your
everything.
wife
Okay.
can go from New York to London and back and get caught up in the database.
Few believe that in the time since, governments have just given up. Number 3. False justification for war. In August
They do it all the
1964,
time.
the USS Maddox fired a
For
warning
example,
shot
the one
as
in
3
Russia right
North
now, in
Vietnamese
Ukraine,
torpedo
Russia.
boats approached the Gulf of Tonkin. After the torpedo boats opened fire, the Maddox sank all 3. 2 days later, the report of a second attack prompted President Lyndon B. Johnson to authorize further military action in Vietnam. For years,
They be
people
doing it
questioned
like
this
for real. It's
justification.
actually
At one point, the
scary at
commander
this
of the ship
point.
said, "We're not certain of the attack." Another point, they said, "Yes, we're absolutely positive." And then finally, late in the day, Admiral Sharp said, "Yes, we're certain it happened."
It was eventually revealed that the second attack was imaginary, based on wrongly interpreted communications intercepts. It wasn't the last
Set it
dubious
all by an
rationale for
imaginary
war.
attack.
In 1990, George H.W. Bush leveraged
Oh
false
my God.
testimony crafted by a public relations firm to initiate the Gulf War. Over a decade later, his son would falsely claim that Iraq possessed WMDs to justify an
What are
invasion.
those?
The people of the United States and our friends and allies will not live at the mercy of an outlaw regime that threatens the
George
peace with
Bush.
weapons of mass murder.
Number 2,
Washington.
Watergate scandal. Perhaps the most well-known political conspiracy of all time, the Watergate scandal was unthinkable when it occurred.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook.
The scandal began when Republican President Richard Nixon's administration illegally wiretapped and broke into the Democratic National Committee headquarters.
We don't know who ordered the burglary, and we don't really know what the burglars were up to that night.
Their aim was to acquire information about Nixon's opposition in the forthcoming election. The arrest of the perpetrators led to attempts by Nixon and his administration to cover up their involvement. However, mounting evidence and leaks soon exploded into a scandal that has become a byword for political disgrace, leading to Nixon's resignation.
One of the things that's so hard to recreate and understand now, looking back, is there was no sense that the president could lie to the American people.
Things have changed, Garrett.
Things have changed today.
Number 1, the CIA conducted mind control experiments. The idea of a government agency trying to control people's minds might sound like science fiction, but it really happened.
MK Ultra.
Prostitutes would lure men to these apartments, and then once the men were in
I
the
think
apartments,
they're
they
still
were
doing
dosed
these things,
with
but
LSD,
just in
and then they
secret.
were basically studied by CIA
Basically.
scientists.
In the 1970s, a commission on the CIA's activities within the U.S. exposed the existence of Project MK Ultra,
Yeah.
a secret program that used drugs and torture to manipulate its victims' mental states.
Kool-Aid was spiked with LSD. It was horrible.
These experiments were conducted on prisoners in secret detention centers around the world, as well as within American universities.
These are just some things that are managed to get out, but the majority of things, I think,
electroconvulsive therapy
they're
in
hidden.
Montreal, Canada. Victims of MK
Like the moon
Ultra
landing.
included Ken
Anyways,
Kesey
now I'm
and
just
Allen
joking.
Ginsberg. It's one of the darkest conspiracies out there, and we still don't know the full extent of it.
Yeah, there are a lot of conspiracies out there which we don't know about and they're still hidden. But the fact is that majority of the things which are covered up are true. And one day they'll come out. Yeah, this was 6 Feet Echo with the conspiracies that might be true or are true. Peace.